Borderlands 3 is controversial. Not because it's broken or unplayable, I mean, far from it, but because it wasn't exactly what a lot of fans expected after the near legendary reputation of Borderlands 2 and the surprising brilliance of the pre-sequel. Borderlands 3, I mean, depending on who you ask, is either an enjoyable but messy experiment or a complete betrayal of what the series stood for. But I want to argue something slightly different. That Borderlands 3 isn't a mistake, it's an experiment. And like most experiments, it's imperfect. It's rough around the edges and it's kind of chaotic, but that doesn't mean it's not worth playing or even loving. If anything, the game's flaws are actually part of what makes it interesting. Because once you look past the noise, the backlash, and the endless Twitter debates, you'll find a game that is very much Borderlands as its core. Loud, wild, unapologetic, and super fucking fun. What's poppin', guys? I'm 2Bros1Game. Welcome back to another video. I'm currently recording this while I'm a bit sick, so I'm probably going to have a lot of fuck-ups and gross sounding shit. But I wanted to talk about Borderlands 3. I have been a huge Borderlands fan for years. Ever since like the release of Borderlands 2 and the pre-sequel and even Borderlands 1, I have just been playing it for years at the ripe old age of like 10 to 11. So, of course, I'm going to have a lot of opinions about this. And me personally, Borderlands 3, well, it's not my favorite. It is one of the best games that I probably, not the best games I've ever played, but one of the most fun games I've ever played. The amount of guns that are in it, the amount of like the colors, the DLCs. I mean, the story is kind of mid, but we're going to get into that. I'm getting ahead of myself. Anyways, let's get on with the topic. So let's start out with something a lot of people will tend to forget. There was a 7-year gap between the release of 2 and 3. And in that time, the landscape of looter shooters were completely changed. Destiny happened. Division happened. Warframe fucking exploded and changed the entire market. Suddenly, people weren't just expecting a fun, chaotic shooter. They were expecting a live service content, endgame depth, and massive long-term updates. Borderlands 3 was never designed to be a live service game, but at the same time, it didn't want to ignore the fact that the genre was changing. So what we got was this halfway point, a classic Borderlands structure wrapped in a more modern framework. And I think that's where a lot of the tonal whiplash comes from. It's a game that wants to be nostalgic and modern, and even though that split personality doesn't always work, it at least shows that Gearbox was trying to evolve the formula instead of just repeating it wholesale. I mean, Borderlands 3 is some of the best feeling gunplay in the entire franchise. The movement is faster, the gun variety is wild, and once you actually learn how to build your character, it becomes this insane power fantasy that beats almost any other looter shooter in pure gameplay satisfaction. Sliding into a group of enemies with the radiation Maggie and watching the screen go white, it just never gets old. And what people don't realize is that the moment-to-moment combat in Borderlands 3 is almost rhythm-based. The speed of the fights, the chaining of abilities, the way gunplay and traversal blend together. It's basically an arcade shooter dressed up like an RPG. And that's a huge leap from the earlier games, which were way more tactical and methodical. Borderlands 3 leans into this pure flow, and once you find yours, it is borderline addictive. Now, every single DLC of Borderlands 3 is not only better, objectively, written than the base game, but it's arguably some of the strongest storytelling the franchise has ever delivered. Guns, Love, and Tentacles is genuinely emotional and builds Rainwright and Hammerlock better than the main campaign ever did. Bounty of Blood explores the Western genre tropes in a way the main series had never even tried. And Psycho Creed, which is my favorite DLC, is basically a love letter to Tiny Tina's DLC from Borderlands 2, and just touches on some of the deepest topics that most games are really scared to touch, and most DLCs almost don't touch. You have this side character that, yeah, was really fun, we got some backstory on himself, but once this DLC dropped, we just all changed our view of Krieg, of the Psychos, there was so much world building in all these games, because even though these stories are smaller, wielder, and way more focused, they're just exactly why they work in this universe. The DLC is where Borderlands 3 stops trying to impress a mainstream audience and goes back to being unapologetically weird. Giant tentacle gods at a wedding? Sure. A noir-style western narrated by a mysterious ghost? And a trip into a fractured mind of Krieg? Why not? These expansions show that what the main game could have been if it had trusted its own absurdity from the start. If you're skipping the DLC, you're skipping the best part. Now, while that does suck. That you had to buy the DLC to understand the full story. I feel like that's what makes you want to get the DLC in the first place. Now, as of now, I understand that Gearbox and all of them they're going through a big lawsuit and getting all this kind of stuff, and there's so much controversy around them. I personally believe, and I do hate that I'm saying this, that the DLCs are what makes this game way better. Just the fact that they're built into it, they explore more of the galaxy, all this kind of stuff. It does suck that you have to buy the DLC, but they go on sale like every fucking Tuesday, so at that point you're just, it comes with it if you're really getting it. Now, I'm not saying Borderlands 3 is perfect. Absolutely it's not. A lot of the jokes missed, the pacing is all over the place, and certain missions feel like they're loud by design rather than clever. And yes, when you compare its writing to the pre-sequel, which, I'll die on this hill, is the most consistently written entry in the entire series, being my absolute favorite, Borderlands 3 definitely feels messy. But messiness doesn't always equal failure. Sometimes it just means the developer were taking risk, and honestly, I'd rather get a flawed game that tries to do something different than a safe sequel that checks all the boxes. Borderlands 3 swings for the fences, and even though it doesn't always hit, it sometimes does, and when it does, it hits hard, and that's worth acknowledging, especially in a franchise that could have easily become formulaic by its fourth main entry. And maybe that's why so many people are nervous about Borderlands 4, because for them, Borderlands 3 wasn't just different, it was a warning. If they did that once, they might do it again. But I think Borderlands 3 can also be a lesson. Gearbox tried something new, and some of it worked, but some of it didn't. But the core formula still works, and if they take what did work, the tight gunplay, the insane build variety, and focus shown in the DLC, and mix it with the tighter pacing of the pre-sequel, or even Borderlands 2, Borderlands 4 might actually be the best of the entire series. And what excites me is the idea that Gearbox knows exactly what worked and what didn't. They got the feedback, they saw the reactions, and if Borderlands 3 is going to be the growing pains entry, Borderlands 4 has the potential to be the one where everything finally clicks together. So yes, people are worried. Maybe that worry will end up being the very thing that pushes the next game to reach its full potential. Now look, Borderlands 3 isn't perfect. It stumbles, it tries too many things at once, but at the end of the day, it still delivers. What this series does best, the ridiculous weapons, chaotic combat, and the kind of world you can get completely lost in if you're willing to let yourself. And if you love Borderlands, really love it, the way I do, then maybe the best thing you can do is stop comparing it to the past and start appreciating for what it actually is. And if nothing else, Borderlands 3 shows that this universe still has room to grow. It's still evolving, still experimenting, still trying to find new ways to surpass us. And that's a good thing, because it means Borderlands 4 won't just be a copy-paste sequel. It'll be something bigger, bolder, and hopefully smarter. That's the future I want for this franchise. Thanks everybody for watching. If you enjoyed this video essay, feel free to leave a like and subscribe, and let me know in the comments what your favorite Borderlands game is and why it's the pre-sequel.